Hi, this is Julie Hester, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use input files in C++. I'm first going to show you an example file that has fields separated by whitespaces. Then I'll show you how to open a file for input and check that it worked, how to read data that's separated by whitespaces, and finally how to close a file. So the simplest file format we can work with is a file format where each field is separated by spaces or tab characters or some other type of white space. Each record is on a separate line, and we can use the white space to know where each field begins and ends. So for an example file, here I have animals.txt. It has 3 records. It begins with the name of an animal, a string variable, followed by an integer. And tabs are separating the 2 fields. So for the examples that I'll be working with in this video, I will use this file. When we work with files, we have to include the file stream library. So we'll include the header file ifstream. And in order to work with input files, we need to create an input file stream variable or data type ifstream. Here I've created one and I've named it inputFile. When we work with input files, we'll follow 3 basic steps. We'll first open the file and validate that it is opened successfully. We'll read from the file, and then we'll close the file. And because C++ is a portable language, we don't have to worry about how the operating system interacts with the physical file. When we compile our program, the executable file will be created for our target operating system. So first, we'll open the file. This file must exist, and after we attempt to open it, we want to verify that it actually did open successfully. So here I have my input file variable, data type ifstream, named inputFile. And inputFile is an object. So with objects, when we want to call a function, we separate the variable name and the function name with a period. So here we have inputFile.open, and as a parameter to the open function, I've passed the name of my file. Now that I've attempted to open it, I'm going to check to see if it really did open by calling the is_open function. And if it did not successfully open, this will return false, and I may not be able to continue my program. So in this case, I'm going to end the program at this point and return a non-zero return code to indicate an error. Now that we have opened the file, we can read data from the file. And ifstream is going to work just like cin. I'm going to use the name of my variable followed by the extraction operator for each field on the record. So I'm reading first animal and then quantity. I'll use a loop to read and process each record. Each iteration of my loop will read a single record, and since we may not know the number of records in the file, we're going to end the loop when we get to the end of the file. So here I'm using a while loop, and my test condition for my while loop is reading each field in one record. So in parentheses, I have inputFile, animal, and quantity. And when I attempt to read more fields after I get to the end of the file, this will return false, and I won't execute the while loop. So here, I'll attempt to read 2 fields from the file. If I did successfully read them, then I'll go into the body of the while loop and display the values. or I could put them in a vector or whatever I want to do with them. Then I'll go to the next iteration of the while loop, which will attempt to read the next record, and this will continue until we get to the end of the file and the extraction operator returns false. Another way we can handle checking to see if we're at the end of the file is looking at two of the flags, eofbit and failbit. The FileStream object has a number of flags indicating the condition of the operations. The eofbit and the failbit flags will be turned on once we're at the end of the file. So in this case, for my while loop test condition, I'm going to call the EOF function, and that will return true or false based on whether I'm at the end of the file. If I'm not at the end of the file, I will attempt to read animal and quantity from inputFile. But it is possible that I was almost at the end of the file, but I had not set the eofbit flag, and it's possible that inputFile was not able to read another record. So after I read animal and quantity, I'm going to verify that that did succeed by calling the fail function. And if I'm not at the end of the file, then I will execute the body of the if statement, and I can process the variables however I wish, display them, save them, or whatever I want to do. But if I was right at the end of the file, the inputFile.fail function will let me know that I did not successfully read this data. Finally, I'm going to close the file. We always want to close a file when we're finished with it, and it's just a matter of calling the close function with no parameters. If we don't close the file and our program ends, the operating system will close the file, but we don't want to wait for the operating system to do this. If we have output data, any buffered data may not have been written to the file, and we want to free system resources. So now let's compare using input files with CN. So differences are that we have to declare a file input variable, we need to open the file before reading from it, and when we're finished, we'll close the file. But similarly, reading the file is identical, except we'll use the file variable name instead of CN. And just like with CN, if we do have strings with embedded spaces, we're going to have issues reading them, and we won't want to use this method. Instead, we'll want to use getLine, which I discuss in the next video. So in summary, we saw how to open files for input and check for errors. We saw how to read fields when they're separated with whitespace using the ifstream variable and the extraction operator. And this method does not work when we have string data with embedded spaces. And then finally, we saw how to close the file.